Hello and welcome to my Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch and Wii U, but I only played the Switch version, so I don't think I could really review the Wii U one, but it can't be, or as far as I know, it's not that different. And let's just review Zelda Breath of the Wild and see what my personal opinions are on it, and of course, Zelda in the future. So like anything coming in the future. Just go. So what makes The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm just gonna say The Legend of Zelda, that's it. Or just Zelda, this Zelda game, I don't know. But the main point of this game is the fact that it wanted to break the conventions that have been holding back the series for a little too long. Skyward Sword was pretty good, it was just a little too linear. The DS ones, Twilight Princess, were all fantastic. Skyward Sword had a pretty good story, better than Breath of the Wild, which is kind of funny. They like linear story, that was Breath of the Wild, and then non-linear story, or no story, that was Breath of the Wild, and then linear and story was Skyward Sword, and that was just kind of the main problem with Skyward Sword. So they wanted to change up the series, they wanted to change a whole lot of things, a lot of new bold things came to the series in many different forms, and it was the biggest Zelda game to date ever. There has never been a single Zelda game that big, and it's one of the biggest games in general. It's a massive game, and that's kind of the point of it. So let's move on to the intro of the story. So you start off, spoilers, you start off in this cave, and you've been sleeping there for 100 years because you were knocked out by a guardian, and then you just had to slowly get back to your normal self, but you forgot everything. You get your Sheikah Slate, you run out up there, you can actually climb now, another huge mechanic, and you have your own jump button, and a huge amount of armor. Like, you can just have so many different types. It's really cool. I wish you could have a few different ones, but for the most part, I think they had a pretty decent selection of armor. Now, once you get out of the chamber where you were resting and you get your Sheikah Slate, you meet an old man, and later on you find out that he is the last king of Hyrule. For 100 years, Ganon has been recharging his power again after he got knocked out and put into a battle with Zelda. So they introduce you to the Great Plateau, where the Temple of Time was, Castle Town, and even a very prehistoric Hyrule are all on the Great Plateau. There's a mini mountain. There's even a stone talus, which is one of the many bosses on the game. And you basically just have to find all 4 shrines, and then you get a paraglider in which you can go off of the Great Plateau, because the game kind of prevents you from going in anywhere until you get that. But it goes by really fast, like probably about less than 10 hours just to get through the intro. Probably even less than 2 if you're really fast. I don't know. You could probably go even faster. I mean, speedrunners go fast, but like if you want to go average, yeah. So another huge mechanic that they have is cooking. You can kill animals, you can grab butterflies, you can grab lizards, you can do a whole lot of stuff. You can cook bad guy parts, Bokoblin, which is a very cool enemy, and I'm very glad that they brought it back from Skyward Sword, and it was also in Wind Waker. It was in a few other games, but that's not important. And with this cooking mechanic, that's how you get your hearts back. There's no more little dinky hearts that come from the grass or from pots. That's not how this game works. You get your hearts from either Mipha's Grace, which is a very cool thing. We'll get to that later. And it's honestly a very cool mechanic, and I'm pretty sure it's going to at least stay in some form in the next game. Another thing I wanted to get to is the breaking of items. This is the very first Zelda that one of your items can break. Now, your shield, you can lose your shield with those likes. They're kind of annoying. But it's not necessarily breaking. You're just getting it taken away from you. Kind of like how breaking works, but a little different. So, when you get items in the game, unlike previous Zelda games, when you hit it against a tree, hit it against a bad guy, do anything, the weapon starts taking damage. The more damage you put on it, it eventually breaks, which is kind of realistic. And even the Master Sword is no exception to how bad this breaking mechanic will be. Now that we're done talking about the breaking of items, smash it, bam, gone, and then you have to get new ones, let's talk about the graphics of the game. Now, the graphics compared to any other console, Xbox and PlayStation, they're not very good, but because of the art style of the game, it kind of helps mix it in. And it's HD too, so you don't really need much more than HD for a game to look amazing. And then they had a very cool art style that was in between Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. It was a very cool mix, and I really liked the art style for the game. Another thing I wanted to touch on is gameplay mechanics. Like I said earlier, you can climb, you can jump, you can do a lot of things that you couldn't normally do with other Zelda games. And I really liked the approach of it. The controls felt, for the most part, smooth. The only time that I really had struggles was aiming with the bow, but for the most part, I got used to it, and it wasn't that bad. Now I want to talk about some notable features in the game. So there are a lot of different bad guys in this game. There are Bokoblins, there's Lionel, there's Choo-Choos, there's Keese, there's Lavaltos, there's Moblins. There's a lot of bad guys in this game. And among them, they always upgrade. So you have a red Bokoblin, a blue Bokoblin, a brown or black Bokoblin, and then a silver. And then for the new thing that's coming out soon, golden Bokoblin. Possibly. Well, we at least know there's a golden Lionel. And I think that's a really cool feature because, now you know how difficult a bad guy is. And it kind of gets you more so up, because on the Great Plateau, where you first start off, that's just kind of where you hang out, and then once you get off of it, bad guys get tougher. And then you have to go talk to Impa. She'll give you all this stuff. You go to Hatno. She'll power up your Sheikah Slate so you can do everything. And then you go after the Divine Beasts. Get the shrines, get the memories, and all that crap. So for the amiibo, every amiibo is supported. Now you may be thinking, isn't there over 300 of them or something like that? Yeah, you're right. There is 300. But only Zelda amiibo give you specific things to that amiibo. So Wolf Link amiibo gives you Wolf Link that can help you out in battle. The Link Smash Bros. Amiibo can give you a bunch of things themed to Link, and Epona. It's the only way you can get Epona, but you can also get other horses, which is a really cool mechanic that wasn't in previous Zelda games because you only had Epona, but now you have all the rest, and for most people that don't even have the amiibo, you can't even use Epona. But that's okay. Not having Epona really isn't a bad thing, and then you can also have armor for the horse, which is something completely new and very awesome. And anything that's not a Zelda amiibo, you'll just get a piece of meat and just kind of randomly generated stuff. There are some pictures on the internet if you just look up what amiibo work or what amiibo give you in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then there'll be a bunch of pictures that actually show specifically what you'll get. Next up, I want to talk about the story. The story is pretty good, except you get about this much without the memories. You get about this much with the memories, and then we don't get enough memories or anything else. Don't get me wrong, the story is pretty good, but I never really felt impacted as Skyward Sword. Now, this isn't the first open-world game that fell to this, of course. There are lots of other games similar to Zelda Breath of the Wild that also have had this struggle. But Zelda Breath of the Wild took a different approach to it, but still kind of fell in some places on the story. There wasn't enough of it, there wasn't kind of a proper way to do it, but for the most part, it wasn't terrible, and it didn't ruin the game specifically for me. Now, I want to talk about the Divine Beasts. There are 4 Divine Beasts. They're basically these things piloted by each of the regions, species, I guess. So you have the Rito, the Gerudo, the Gorons, and the Zoras. Each one have a divine beast. They shoot at Ganon's castle, which is my face, and then it hurts Ganon, and then you can start fighting them for the final boss. The dungeons themselves are cool, but I think they could have done a little bit more work. At least 3 or 4 times harder and more difficult to figure out the puzzles. Because the shrines were cool, but then the shrines didn't, like, go on it at all, and it was just kind of... wasn't good. It was just kind of short. It had a cool mechanic, but it was just a little too short in my opinion. And then the bosses were exactly the same for the most part. All 3 of the bosses... I know there's 4. All 3 of the bosses, Goron, Rito, and Zora, had the same boss except wind, fire, and water. The last one was a little bit different. He was, like, way different from the last 3. He moved around a lot more, and he was called Thunderblight Ganon. He was the most tough out of all of them, in my opinion, but he still kind of was easy. I never lost a heart to him. He was just harder than the rest. So they could have used a little bit more work. But overall, the enemies were very good. I liked the Guardians. I liked the Octoroks, even though they were annoying. And I liked all the other types of creatures that you faced in this game. They were very cool and unique. Besides just dungeon bosses, there were also Stone Talus, Moldra, and Hinnix. Those were the 3 bosses, but Lynel's could have been in there too, but they're not. And these 3 bosses were very unique and cool. And if you beat all of them, you got a medal. The medal did nothing, but the medal was cool. That's what it was. There was 40 Stone Taluses, 4 Moldra, and then 40 Hinnixes, just like the Talus. So far, I've defeated all of them except for about 20 Hinnixes. So I'm doing pretty good. I've almost 100% of the game, and I think it's definitely worth your time to do so because it's a very entertaining game. Now, as for Ganon, Ganon was, let's just say, easy. He wasn't all that unique to the first phase, at least. And he just, I could have used a little bit more Nintendo, but then again, it's supposed to be based on everybody. So whether you just got off the plateau and you went to Ganon, or you've done everything in the entire game and you're going to face Ganon, one's going to be more difficult, the other one's going to be like a piece of cake. So they kind of had to balance it out, but I think I could have used a little bit more Ganon towards the end of the game. And also, it just kind of felt like I wasn't rushed at all. Like, I could explore and everything, but Ganon was just sitting there. Oh, I'm getting stronger. Oh, hey, Link. No matter how fast you came up to me, I'm still the same. I never recharged at all. The only time I did is when you went up on one of the towers and I started swirling around. It's the only thing that changed. It's kind of annoying. Kind of wish there was a bit more rush, like realisticness. But that's okay. You know, you can't get everything in a Zelda game. One last thing I want to talk about is the ending. The ending was lacking a little bit. Now, hopefully the DLC can follow this up and be really cool, but for the most part, the ending was just kind of cool, but not really. They may be thinking, well, did you get all the memories in the game? Yes, I did get all the memories, but the ending was still kind of lacking for me. It was just kind of like, do you even remember me? Like, Zelda's happy that you did that. And then you see all the Divine Beast champions, the pre-ones, and the king just die. And then Link and them are just like, okay, we got a little work to do, and then it was just kind of lacking. But the DLC that's coming out this winter has a new story mode, a new dungeon, and another few new features, so I hope that can really excel the story a little bit more. It didn't ruin the game again, but it definitely was a little gap that was missing. And now to talk about the DLC. Now, I just briefly talked about the second one because that's all we know. But the first one is adding a feature where your sword will not break. You go through about 40, I don't know how many, but you go through like 40-ish rooms. Once you go through the rooms, you have to fight through bad guys, and you're stripped of everything like Eventide Island Shrine. And it's a really cool feature But it's just kind of like, yay, but you already beat the game. I don't know, it seems cool, and I'm definitely going to get it. Another feature is Heroes Pass, so you can see where you've gone. They're adding that for DLC sometime soon. I think June or July it's coming out. And then they're also adding some new armor and a Korok mask, so that way it'll shake whenever you get near Koroks. Oh yeah, Koroks. I never talked about them until now. So, Korok seeds, there's 900 in the entire game. In the entire game, there are 900 of them. Good luck collecting them all. But you don't have to collect them all. You only need to collect 441 to expand your inventory. That's what they do. You find this guy's maracas, you give them to the guy, and then he's like, yay! But then his maracas don't have seeds in them, so you have to give him seeds to make the maracas shake. And the more seeds you get, the bigger your inventory will get. You'll be able to hold more swords, more shields, and more bows. Really cool feature. I think it could have been a little bit better, but you know what? That's okay. Also, the Divine Beast abilities were also a very cool feature. Kind of like them giving you their powers. Now that they're gone, they don't need it. It was really neat. One of the features was that you could get all your hearts back and 5 bonus ones. That was Mipha's Grace you got from the Zora Divine Beast. And then from the Goron Divine Beast, you could be completely invincible for 3 hits. So that was also a very cool thing. From the Rito, you got the Rivali's Gale, which you can fly up really high, helps with mountains and climbing. It just boosts you in the sky, and you can use that 3 times before it recharges for a certain amount of time. And then you also have the Gerudo's ability, Urbosa, that's the champion. You also got her ability, which made it so that it would make lightning spawn in a circle around you, and that was really cool, helped defeat bad guys. And then the Master Sword, it was a pretty cool feature. You had to get to it once you had 13 hearts. Once you had all of them, you could be like, yay, I have it. But it breaks eventually. And it's not even the strongest weapon either, so it's kind of like, is this thing even worth it? But that's why the DLC is coming out, in which your sword will not break. The Master Sword, that is. And the sword will recharge itself every 10 minutes once it breaks. And then the DLC will fix that. Once you get through those 40 stages that I talked about, you'll get a completely unbreakable sword. So that is my entire Zelda review. I think I kind of rushed through it, but then again, I had a little bit to talk about, so it's not that bad. Thanks for watching this video. If you're watching this on the day it came out, Monday, you should expect Zelda Breath of the Wild Episode 1. So right after I do this, isn't that kind of a coincidence? You get to watch me play through it. Isn't that nice? I am just a good thinker, aren't I? So I'm going to be playing through, not the whole game because there's a lot to do in the game, but I'm going to be covering a huge a huge part of the game that you guys can see what Zelda Breath of the Wild is, and if you really like it, that's where you do it. But in my opinion, Zelda Breath of the Wild is definitely a game to go buy. Go get a Switch, or if you already have a Wii U, go get it and play through it for about 100 hours. You may think I'm saying something pretty crazy, but if you're just about as good as a gamer as I am, you're going to want to play it for a while, because there's a lot of things to do, and I definitely recommend it, all the shrines, memories, and all that crap. But that is my entire Zelda Breath of the Wild review. I'm going to be doing another review next Friday, if you're watching this on the day it came out again. And I'm just going to be talking about another game, which I think I'll leave it as a surprise because you already knew that this was going to be Zelda, but will you know that the next one is going to be? Find out next video. So, thanks for watching this video. Subscribe if you're not already, because you're not going to be able to notice you're not going to be able to notice when I release new videos because you won't get notifications or anything. So, subscribe, and you will be able to see every new video that I make and be part of the Gavin Knight community. I also have a website, which is in the description box below. It has a bunch of stuff on there, stats, some really cool stuff. It also has a blog with everything I do, so if you want to see everything Gavin Knight, news, updates, like sometimes a video doesn't come out, you're like, what? Where is that video? Well, if you look at the website or look at my Twitter, you'll find out quite easily, which are both in the description box below. Thanks for watching this video. Like it if you liked it. And I think I said everything I set out to do. Thanks for watching this video. 20-minute video. See you guys then.